In 1961, Robert Allen Zimmerman moved from Minnesota to New York City to pursue his love of music. Not long before leaving Minnesota, he'd taken on a stage name, one allegedly inspired by a character on the Western TV show Gunsmoke, and began calling himself Bob Dylan. And before long, Dylan would be known across the world for his raspy voice, evocative lyrics, and generation-defining songs, many of which became some of the 1960s most enduring anthems. Still, it took a while for Dylan to become well-known outside of New York, or even within it. His self-titled debut album came out in 1962, containing a handful of original songs and several covers of popular folk tunes. Though the album wasn't a hit, it sold fairly well and even earned Dylan a Grammy nomination for Best Folk Recording. But things really took off for Dylan in 1963. It was then that he released the freewheelin' Bob Dylan, which contained one of his most iconic songs, Blowin' In The Wind. The next year, Dylan further solidified his burgeoning voice of a generation reputation as he reflected on America's rapidly changing political landscape with his album, The Times They Are A-Changin'. Indeed, the United States in 1964 was a very different country from the one that it had been just a few years earlier when Dylan was still in Minnesota. The civil rights movement was gaining steam, the conflict in Vietnam was expanding, as were the protests against it, and the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963, had left the entire nation in shock. Dylan's music, poetic and unafraid to engage with politics, rose up and met the changing times. That said, many of Dylan's most beloved songs only gained historic meaning in retrospect. Look no further than Blowin' In The Wind, which Dylan claims is not a protest song at all. Dylan, who allegedly wrote the song in just 10 minutes, introduced it with a major caveat when he played it for the first time in New York City, saying, "This here ain't no protest song or anything like that, 'cause I don't write no protest songs." Despite this, a line like, "How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man?" certainly seems like a clear reference to the civil rights movement, especially because both Dylan and the folk group Peter, Paul, and Mary sang the song during the 1963 March on Washington. That said, some of Dylan's songs do have backstories, even though others remain vague or later given significance by listeners that Dylan never articulated himself. But like the famous folk song Tom Dooley, many of Dylan's songs were based on real-life events, from the murder of civil rights activist Medgar Evers to the imprisonment of boxer Rubin "Hurricane" Carter. Today, we're digging into the meaning behind those songs and more of Bob Dylan's most celebrated records, from The Times They Are A-Changin' to Tangled Up in Blue. You're listening to History Uncovered, brought to you by the digital publisher All That's Interesting, where we explore the uncharted corners of the natural world and the world past. I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Kalina Fraga.
And I'm All That's Interesting editor Kara Johnson.
Today, we're investigating the histories and hidden meanings behind some of Bob Dylan's most famous songs.
I don't listen to a lot of Bob Dylan, and I feel like I should because I like the folksier stuff.
Yeah.
Which I know he kind of transitioned out of later, but it's still there. There's still a hint of it. And
yeah,
it doesn't pop up in my embarrassing Spotify algorithm too often.
I used to listen, I mean, it's been a really long time. Like in high school, I had like a very brief Bob Dylan phase where I listened to some of his songs at least. So, But I didn't know all the songs. I will say that I'm not going to like sing any songs. I'm going to read some of the lyrics.
Nor will I.
For the ones that I know, I'm not sure if my voice is going to like take on a weird cadence because I know how it goes. But yeah, kind of like I said in the intro, Bob Dylan songs, there's like a range. Some of them, people are like, oh, this song's about this thing, and it's actually not. Like he said it's not about that thing. And some of them are very rooted in history. So we're just going to start with a couple that are a bit more, have like more vague themes, and then a couple that have more specific roots in actual events. So the first one is Masters of War, which was written between 1962 and 1963. And I'm like doubting my strategy of reading these lyrics now because it feels really silly, but it goes, come you masters of war, you that build the big guns, you that build the death planes, you that build all the bombs, you that hide behind walls, you that hide behind desks. I just want you to know I can see through your masks. So this one I think seems fairly clear to anyone listening that this was about war, anti-war sentiments. At the time that it was written, it was sort of kind of in the early days of the Vietnam War, 1962, 1963, but the conflict was growing. And probably more of what it was about was the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis had happened in the fall of 1962, and Dylan seemed to be thinking about this increasing militaristic feeling in the nation, in the world, and responding to it. He himself said, "Masters of War is supposed to be a pacifistic song against war. It's not an anti-war song. It's speaking against what Eisenhower was calling a military-industrial complex as he was making his exit from the presidency. That spirit was in the air, and I picked it up." So there you go for that.
It, without getting overtly political here, it's funny that comments I see online about current conflicts echo these lyrics.
Right. I think it's a very universal statement. I mean, probably to ancient wars.
Oh, yeah, for
to
sure.
some degree. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of the goings-on behind the war. That's not just, oh, this person attacked us, so we need to attack them back. The kind of deeper conflicts hidden beneath those.
Yeah, and the people who wage war, who generally are safe at home behind their desks, versus the people who are actually giving their lives for that cause.
The cause, yeah.
Yeah. The song ends with sort of a controversial lyric or stanza, which goes, "And I hope that you die and your death will come soon. I'll follow your casket by the pale afternoon, and I'll watch while you're lowered down to your deathbed, and I'll stand by your grave till I'm sure that you're dead." Very curiously to me, Dylan sang the song at the United States Military Academy in 1990. He did not sing this verse. He cut it out. But even the rest of the song, I feel like, is a really odd choice. I mean, he's kind of an odd choice for that, but go figure. And also in the film from a couple years ago with Timothy Chalamet, they did a cover of this song, but he skipped the final or the first 4 lyrics of that verse. So again,
okay, so the part about hoping that they die.
People die, yeah, which is not, wasn't a very super Dylan-esque sentiment, I think. Generally, he's more about kind of peace and hanging out. But yeah, so I think that one was pretty clear. The next one, I think most people will know the song, at least. It's "The Times They Are A-Changin'," probably his most famous, or at least in the top 3.
Yeah.
This song, unlike "Blowin' In The Wind," which he said was not a protest song, he said this was a protest song. He told Cameron Crowe in the liner notes of the 1985 Dylan box set, Biograph, "This was definitely a song with a purpose. I wanted to write a big song with short, concise verses that piled up on each other in a hypnotic way. The civil rights movement and the folk music movement were pretty close for a while and allied together at that time." And this is the lyric that okay, I'm going to try not to at all add anything to it, but it's lyrics which was written in the second half of 1963, pretty big year for lots of reasons we'll talk about, goes, "Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, and you better start swimming, or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'." Things had certainly started to change by 1963.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was a time where a lot of different things are moving very fast. I think anyone who's watched the first couple seasons of Mad Men, at the very least, knows that. If they study history at all, they know that. But from the 1950s into the early 1960s, the civil rights movement was growing very fast, from the desegregation of schools in 1954 and the Montgomery bus boycott the next year. There were protests, there were sit-ins. And 1963 was the March on Washington, which was the "I Have a Dream" speech and all that, where Dylan sang "Blowin' in the Wind," even though he had said it was not a protest song. This song, "The Times They Are A-Changin'," a lot of people do see it as a powerful protest song, and Dylan himself seemed to, at least retrospectively, say it was a protest song. But at least at the time that he wrote it, a friend of his asked what it was about after he saw the lyrics, and Dylan said, "Well, it seems to be what the people like to hear." So I don't know what he was really planning with that. But in any case, by the time it came out in February 1964, things had obviously changed quite a bit more, because Kennedy was assassinated the November before, November 22nd, 1963. So things were changing at a rapid clip.
Interesting that I'm trying to put his different words together. So he calls it a protest song, but then later he says, well, it seems to be what the people like to hear. So, I mean, I guess also he
said it was a protest song in 1985. And
okay, so way after.
Yeah, and what he said, the thing that people like to hear, he said that when someone saw the original lyrics. So, yeah, in the 60s.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, at the time, it was also kind of a people are on one side or the other of this with these such big changes that were happening. Either you're for segregation or you're for integration. It was kind of a very, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, black and white issue.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess this is what the people want to hear. It could really relate to either, not that he related with the segregation people, but it was a hot button issue, I guess, is the point I'm getting at there.
I think in this song, at least, in different songs, that's a really different story. But in this song, it's not like he's making an explicit call to arms or anything. I think, like in the stanza, I guess the verse I read, the line, "You better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone," is, at least to me, sounds like you need to change with the times. Like things are changing. It's time to adapt.
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but he's not saying anything explicit about civil rights or whatnot.
And you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, or the times they are a-changing.
That's very different in our next song, which is a song I did not know. It's called Only a Pawn in Their Game. He also sang this at the March on Washington, and this song was very specifically about the murder of Medgar Evers, who was a civil rights activist and the NAACP's first field secretary in Mississippi. He was a really big deal. He helped lead rallies, voter registration drives, boycotts, things like that, and received a lot of death threats for that work. And on June 12th, 1963, he was shot and killed in the driveway of his home in Jackson, Mississippi, with his wife and 3 children inside. So Dylan's song is about this murder, but it's also about something else. The song starts, "A bullet from the back of a bush took Medgar Evers' blood. A finger fired the trigger to his name. A handle hit out in the dark. A hand set the spark. 2 eyes took the aim behind a man's brain." But then the song kind of goes in this other direction because Dylan wanted to make a point about like how racism is bad for everybody, not just black people, but also for white people. He said, the song goes on, "But he can't be blamed. This is the killer. He's only a pawn in their game." And then it goes on. "A South politician preaches to the poor white man, 'You got more than the blacks, don't complain. You're better than them, even born with white skin,' they explain. And the Negro's name is used, it is plain, for the politician's gain, as he rises to fame, and the poor white remains on the caboose of the train. But it ain't him to blame, he's only a pawn in their game." So he was trying to make a point about, I think, sort of similar to Masters of War, where like there's kind of these puppet masters playing on people's emotions and prejudices but it was not a super popular take at the time. He played it at the March on Washington and it was sort of greeted with scattered applause. And he didn't play it again. So I can see sort of what he wanted to say, but it was sort of, I think Medgar Evers' murder was sort of an inelegant vessel for this message he was trying to get across.
I think things were so heated at the time that kind of saying that, oh, it's not all his fault, he's only a pawn in their game, didn't sit right.
Right. He kind of continued, though, on this theme of bringing crimes against Black people to light in his music. And the next 2 songs, which are kind of the heart of the episode, this is what someone wrote in about a couple of months ago, I think. The first song is The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll, which is another Dylan song I had not heard before. But the story is that on the way back from the March on Washington, he read a newspaper article about the murder of a Black barmaid named Hattie Carroll, who I think was in her 50s, who had been berated and beaten by a wealthy young white man named William Devereaux Zantzinger, which is quite a name. He was at the Emerson Hotel in Baltimore, and when she was slow to bring him a drink, he verbally abused her and then struck her with this toy cane he'd been kind of like terrorizing people with all night. He struck her like kind of on the back, on the neck and shoulder. And this and the stress of the verbal abuse and everything caused a brain hemorrhage, and he was ultimately charged, and she died, and he was ultimately charged with manslaughter, sentenced to just 6 months in prison. And this left an impact on Dylan, who wrote the song when he got back to Manhattan. And similar to the Medgar Evers song, he draws he takes the straight facts from the case and puts them in the song. The first stanza goes, William Zanziger killed poor Hattie Carroll, so he uses, their names, with a cane that he twirled around his diamond ring finger at a Baltimore hotel society gathering, and the cops were called in and his weapon took from him as they rode him in custody down to the station and booked William Zanziger for first-degree murder. So, all that's true. And then the song goes on to kind of explore the disparity between the two, focusing on Zanziger's wealth and privilege, and then ends noting, as in real life, that he served just 6 months for this crime.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of this song either, I don't think, or this situation.
No. I was kind of surprised at how, it's interesting. This song and the next song were suggested because of our Tom Dooley episode. And the Tom Dooley episode was so, people, thought, there were a lot of things, no one really knew what had happened. So the song made some assumptions about, whatever. And then you could make your own about who was guilty and what actually happened.
Right, yeah, there were different theories.
Yeah. In this case, it's this was the story, and he just kind of put it to music. And it was the same in this next song called Hurricane, which is a bit later than the other ones we talked about, 1975. In this case, Dylan wrote about the story of a black boxer named Rubin Hurricane Carter, who had been accused of murder after a triple homicide at the Lafayette Bar and Grill in Paterson, New Jersey. Carter and two other men were on their way back from a nightclub when they were pulled over, and he and one of the men were charged with murder. With the murder that had happened nearby, and he was later found guilty in a pretty controversial trial. Carter, while in prison, wrote an autobiography. Dylan read it and decided to write a song about the story. And similar to Hattie Carroll, it's pretty similar to the actual story. Part of the song goes, "Here comes the story of the hurricane, the man the authorities came to blame for something that he never done, put in a prison cell. One time he could have been the champion of the world. Yes, that's the story of the hurricane, but it won't be over till they clear his name and give him back the time that he's done, put in a prison cell, but one time he could have been the champion of the world." He was indeed granted a new trial, but found guilty again. Dylan did not intend, but I don't know that he, I don't know. I don't think that really means all that much. Yeah. He was then released about a decade later after a judge found that his trial had been, quote, based on racism rather than reason and concealment rather than disclosure. So ultimately,
I guess this one's a little more similar to Tom Dooley in that it's kind of a mystery of who did this homicide. Obviously, people thought there was some evidence that this boxer did it, but also the judge said it was based on racism rather than reason. So there was evidence that he did not do it.
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, because the Tom Dooley thing, it was based on, this one at least was based on these dubious eyewitness testimony.
Right. But yeah, kind of another one where there's different theories about the case, and Bob Dylan seems to have taken the side that he didn't actually do it.
Right, yeah. Which sort of fits into okay, if this guy was found guilty of murder because racism played a role, that sort of fits with the other songs we've discussed here. I also found a couple of other songs didn't really have meaning, or the meaning had changed a lot or had been kind of given meaning.
Mm-hmm.
One example is A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, which was written in September 1962. It's purported to be about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but that didn't happen until October 1962. So, probably not.
Probably not.
Although I'm sure there was nuclear fear and tension and whatnot that maybe Dylan drew on.
It's still Cold War.
Right, exactly. He later said, "No, it's not atomic rain, it's just a hard rain. It isn't the fallout rain. I mean some sort of end that's just got to happen. In the last verse, when I say the pellets of poison are flooding the waters, that means all the lies that people get told on their radios and in their newspapers." So this once again kind of fits with masters of war and politicians kind of manipulating
the
masses. Yeah. Joan Baez called it an anti-nuclear Holocaust song. So yeah, again, it's up to interpretation, but I think that there was enough going on in the world where that could work, or it could just be that there's going to be a consequence for the lies being told by politicians, and something's gonna fall.
It's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard rain. You're gonna fall.
Tombstone Blues is the next song, which seemingly another anti-Vietnam War song. Has a lyric like, "The king of the Philistines, his soldiers to save, put jawbones on their tombstones and platters their graves, puts the pea piper in prison and fattens the slaves and sends them out to the jungle." The king of the Philistines seems like Lyndon Johnson. There's also a line in this song about the commander-in-chief, so like that seems likely. The jungle to me seems very Vietnam-coded.
Yeah. I was trying to look at the lyrics again. It's interesting. He says the king of the Philistines, and I guess in the Bible, the Philistines are the enemy of the Israelites, but they're more advanced technologically and kind of more just higher on the totem pole, formidable, I guess. So it's fascinating that I assume he's calling America the Philistines, because the king of the Philistines, his soldiers to save, sends them out to the jungle, or fattens the slaves and sends them out to the jungle. So saying that America's kind of this big technologically advanced civilization that's sending out its slaves or against lesser enemies, and not lesser, but less powerful enemies.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That's I hadn't heard that song before either. So interesting religious allusion there.
Yeah, 1965, that one came out. I could definitely see that because I think it was a really it was very sort of shocking to people to watch Vietnam like on TV and to see these tanks roll into Vietnamese villages and things like that. Yeah, it was interesting. I wonder how old Bob Dylan is. Probably like 80.
Is he still alive?
He's 84.
I feel like I definitely would have heard if he was dead. So yeah.
Yeah. But then there's a lot of songs that really weren't based in history or reality or politics or anything. Subterranean Homesick Blues was probably based on a Jack Kerouac novella called The Subterraneans, which in turn was influenced by some of the Beats that were friends with Kerouac. Tangled Up in Blue is probably influenced by Cubism because Dylan was taking art classes at the time. And his sort of slowly failing marriage to his wife, Sarah. Knocking on Heaven's Door, which I admit I did not know was a Dylan song. I thought it's been covered by other bands, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. I probably heard a different version before I heard Bob Dylan's version.
He wrote that for the film Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which, of course, was about the death of outlaw Billy the Kid at the hands of Sheriff Pat Garrett. And probably one of his most famous songs, like a Rolling Stone, no one really knows what this song is about. Like, there's interpretations. It's thought to be about his relationship with Edie Sedgwick. So, yeah.
Interesting. Why do I know Edie Sedgwick's name?
Because we've written about her before.
But I know, I'm trying to remember what exactly she
was like a
did.
Warhol.
Oh, right.
I don't want to say groupie, but like a muse.
Muse sounds like the right thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
She, and she overdosed at 28. Interesting. Okay, yeah, it's coming back to me now.
Yeah, so, it was interesting researching this because I knew that he was like known for protest songs, but it seems like it just depended. Some of them were really based in that. Some of them were less based in that. And I think writing about like real people is a powerful form of protest to elevate their stories. Yeah.
John is in the basement mixing up the medicine. I'm on the pavement thinking about the government. A man in a trench coat, bad job laid off, says he's got a bad cough, wants to get it paid off.
Our next episode is something really, really different. It's Anastasia Romanoff, according to the calendar.
Ooh. Interesting.
That one will be interesting.
Interesting switch.
Yes, I know. We're all over the place this season.
I feel like Anastasia is one of those like Roman Empire things.
Oh, yeah, right.
Like everyone has not everyone, but it's an easy phase to get sucked into, especially the movie. What was it? It's not Disney, it's Fox or something.
Oh, was it not Disney? I was going to say the Disney movie.
No, it's not Disney, but its soundtrack is so good.
Oh,
it's probably
I don't remember the soundtrack.
One of my favorite animated, 20th Century Fox.
Oh.
One of my favorite animated film soundtracks.
Wow.
Speaking of my embarrassing Spotify algorithm, we've got some Anastasia soundtrack instead of Bob Dylan.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't remember the songs at all, but I remember like snippets of the movie.
Yeah, I think it was too scary to be a Disney movie. Like, it was definitely a little terrifying as a child.
In the movie, spoiler alert, I mean, I assume they don't go into like the killing, but she like survives and she's like an adult, but like secretly alive. Yeah. Okay.
It definitely, it implies that they're all dead, but it doesn't show the actual murder.
Wow. Well, That could be
That'll
interesting.
be fun. We can talk more about it
Yeah, right.
in 2 weeks.
I'll listen to the soundtrack before then.
Yes.
Or at least one song.
You have to.
All right.
Yeah. They're all pretty short, so it's good.
Yeah. In the meantime, as you wait for that one, you can always visit us online at allthisinteresting.com. You can also join our newsletter at allthisinteresting.com/signup. And you can also become a member at allthisinteresting.com/membership. You can also, I don't know if it was a Spotify comment or an email, I don't remember, but it was an audience suggestion. Bob Dylan song, specifically Hattie Carroll and Hurricane. And if you have your own suggestions, you're welcome to send them in. You can either leave us a voicemail at 929-526-3029 or email us at podcast@allthisinteresting.com or leave a comment on Spotify. And I think most of our episodes lately have been audience suggestions or a large number. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we do see those and they've been really interesting and keep them coming.
Please do. We love to hear them.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see y'all in 2 weeks to talk about Anastasia.
Yes. See you then.
Bye.